The Great Hall in Nexus Prime stretched wider than a football field and reached so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the space with their strange sounds, smells, and colors. At the center of it, all sat Admiral Jack Morrison, a man whose gray hair and deep lines spoke of 40 years serving humanity among the stars. Morrison looked across the curved negotiation table at Ambassador Krell, whose snake-like body coiled around a specially designed chair. The Zephyrian's yellow eyes never blinked as he spoke through his translation device. Next to him sat the Andromedan representative, a being made of living crystal that chimed like wind bells when it moved. Beyond them were dozens of other aliens, all united in one thing. They wanted humanity to give up everything they had worked for. Captain Lisa Hayes sat beside Morrison, her fingers dancing across her datapad as she took notes. At 28, she was young for a diplomatic aide, but she had already spent 5 years learning the complex web of galactic politics. She could speak 7 alien languages and understood the cultural customs of 30 different species. Right now, her knowledge told her that this meeting was going very badly. For 3 weeks, they had sat in this hall. 3 weeks of listening to demands that grew more insulting each day. 3 weeks of trying to find compromise, while the aliens treated humans like children who needed to be controlled. Ambassador Krell raised one of his forearms and spoke. The translator turned his hissing words into flat, emotionless English. The human colonies on the Outer Rim must be evacuated immediately. Your species has violated 17 territorial agreements in the past solar cycle alone. Morrison felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice calm. Ambassador, those colonies were established on uninhabited worlds. We followed every galactic law to the letter. We even waited the required 50 years after initial surveys to ensure no sapient life existed. The Andromedan's crystal body rang like a bell as it shifted. Humans expand too quickly. Your reproductive rates and territorial ambitions threaten the stability of established civilizations. You must accept population controls. Captain Hayes leaned forward slightly. With respect, the Andromedan Collective has established only 12 new colonies in the past 2 centuries. Humanity has explored and settled 47 worlds in the same period, all of them previously uninhabited. Our growth threatens no one. A new voice joined the conversation. The Vorthan delegate, a creature that looked like a walking tree covered in moss, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. Human technology advances too rapidly. You must share all research with the Galactic Council for approval before implementation. Morrison had heard enough variations of this demand over the past weeks. The aliens wanted humanity to hand over their fusion technology, their faster-than-light drives, their medical advances, and their agricultural techniques. In return, they offered nothing except the promise to stop making more demands. A promise Morrison knew they would never keep. He looked around the hall at the assembled delegates. The Rigel Commonwealth representatives whispered among themselves in their clicking language. The hegemony of 6 suns had sent their war-cast delegates, beings bred for conflict who saw every interaction as a battle to be won, even the usually reasonable beings from the Centauri Federation sat silent, apparently willing to go along with whatever the major powers decided. Morrison stood slowly, his chair scraping against the polished floor. The sound echoed in the sudden silence that fell over the hall. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space, "ladies and other honored beings, 3 weeks ago, we came here in good faith. We came seeking peace through mutual respect and understanding." He paused, looking directly at Ambassador Krell. "We offered trade agreements that would benefit all parties. We proposed joint colonization projects for systems with multiple habitable worlds. We suggested technology sharing programs with fair compensation for all participants. The Admiral's voice grew harder. Every offer was rejected. Every compromise was met with new demands. You do not want negotiation. You want surrender disguised as diplomacy. Captain Hayes began gathering her datapads, following Morrison's lead. Around the hall, the small human delegation prepared to leave. There were only 12 of them compared to hundreds of aliens, but Morrison had never felt outnumbered. He had felt disappointed. Ambassador Krell's translator crackled to life. Admiral Morrison, you cannot simply leave. These negotiations are vital to galactic stability. Morrison picked up his briefcase and walked toward the tall doors at the back of the hall. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Ambassador, for 200 years, humanity has served as mediators in galactic disputes. We have helped settle boundary disagreements, trade conflicts, and cultural misunderstandings. We have never asked for payment or special privileges. We did it because we believed in peace. He stopped walking and turned back to face the assembled delegates. But peace requires mutual respect. It requires the willingness to see other beings as equals, not as problems to be solved or threats to be contained. The Nexus mediator, a tall being with blue skin and large black eyes, rose from their position at the head of the table. Admiral Morrison, surely we can find common ground. These discussions need not end in failure. Morrison looked at the mediator for a long moment. During the 3 weeks of talks, the Nexus officials had remained neutral, but their neutrality had meant allowing the major powers to make increasingly unreasonable demands while expecting humans to simply accept them. When you are ready to treat humanity as equals rather than as a problem to be managed, you know where to find us, Morrison said. Until then, consider these talks concluded. Captain Hayes reached the doors first and activated the opening mechanism. The massive portals, carved from a single piece of Nexus crystal, swung open with barely a whisper. Beyond them lay the corridor that led to the human quarters, and then to their ship dot. As the human delegation filed out, chaos erupted in the hall behind them. Voices rose in dozens of languages as delegates argued about what had just happened. Some called for the humans to be brought back by force. Others demanded to know who would mediate their own disputes now. A few suggested that perhaps the humans had been right to leave. Morrison walked steadily down the corridor, not looking back. Beside him, Captain Hayes checked her communication device. Messages were already flooding in from human colonies across the galaxy. Word of the failed negotiations was spreading fast. Admiral, she said quietly, Earth Command is requesting immediate communication. They want to know our next move. Morrison nodded as they approached their quarters. Tell them we are coming home. Tell them that after 2 centuries of playing diplomat to the galaxy, humanity is taking a break from that role. The doors to the human section sealed behind them with a soft click. In the negotiation hall, the arguments continued, but Morrison could no longer hear them. For the first time in 3 weeks, he felt at peace. The human ship Harmony jumped to hyperspace 6 hours after Admiral Morrison walked out of the negotiations. Captain Ruth Peterson stood on the bridge, watching the stars stretch into lines as they left Nexus Prime behind. She had commanded diplomatic vessels for 15 years, but had never seen talks end like this. Her communication console lit up like a Christmas tree. Messages flooded in from across the galaxy, each one more urgent than the last. The Centauran Trade Federation wanted immediate meetings. The Rigel Commonwealth was offering modified terms for resuming talks. Even the proud hegemony of 6 suns was sending diplomatic feelers. Admiral Morrison entered the bridge still wearing his formal diplomatic uniform. His face showed no emotion as he reviewed the flood of incoming messages on Peterson's screens. Admiral, Peterson said, pointing to a priority transmission. The Andromedans are offering to resume talks with revised terms. They say they are willing to negotiate. Morrison shook his head and walked to the large viewport. Outside, space flowed past in the strange patterns of hyperspace travel. Too late, Ruth. They had their chance to negotiate in good faith. Now, they will learn what happens when they choose threats over diplomacy. Meanwhile, back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Krell was discovering that walking away had consequences no one had expected. A trade dispute between the Vorthan Collective and the Rigel Commonwealth had erupted into actual shooting. Vorthan cargo ships burned in space, while Rigel patrol vessels demanded compensation for damaged goods. Normally, this situation would have lasted 6 hours at most. Human diplomatic teams kept offices on every major trade station specifically to handle these kinds of problems. They had a gift for finding solutions that made everyone happy, or at least equally unhappy. But the humans were gone. Krell slithered into the emergency session hall, where panicked delegates tried to figure out what to do. The Rigelian representative, a large insect-like being with multiple arms, clicked angrily at the Vorthan delegate. "Where are the humans?" the Rigelian demanded through its translator. "They always handle these situations. My people are losing millions of credits while we sit here talking." The Vorthan delegate, its moss-covered body rustling with agitation, responded in its whispering voice. "Perhaps if your people had not been so eager to insult humanity during the peace talks, we would still have mediators." Krell watched as what should have been a simple trade disagreement spiraled into something much worse. Without human diplomatic intervention, neither side trusted the other enough to compromise. Old grudges surfaced like poison bubbling up from deep wounds. The Nexus mediators tried to step in, but they lacked humanity's unique approach to problem solving. Humans had a way of making each side feel heard, while gently pushing them toward reasonable solutions. The Nexus officials followed strict protocols that satisfied no one. Commander Steve Martinez sat in the Human Intelligence Station, orbiting Kepler 442b, monitoring galactic communications. His screens showed conflict erupting across 14 different sectors. Trade disputes, boundary disagreements, and old territorial claims were all flaring up at once. Martinez had served in intelligence for 12 years. He understood how the galaxy worked beneath its polite, diplomatic surface. Hundreds of small conflicts stayed manageable only because humans stepped in quickly to mediate. Remove that stabilizing force, and the entire system began to shake apart. Opened a secure channel to Earth Command and waited for General Patricia Clark to accept the transmission. When her face appeared on his screen, Martinez could see the concern in her eyes. "General," Martinez reported, "we are seeing communication breakdowns across the galaxy. Minor disputes are escalating rapidly without human diplomatic intervention. The Vorthan-Rigel situation has spread to involve 3 other trade partners. Fighting has broken out in the Tau Ceti system over mining rights. Even the usually peaceful Centaurians are making territorial demands against their neighbors." General. Clark studied the data Martinez transmitted. She had gray hair like Admiral Morrison, and the same tired eyes that came from decades of keeping peace in a galaxy full of conflicts. "How long before they come crawling back, Steve?" Martinez pulled up his analysis models. "At this rate, maybe 3 months. The galaxy runs on human diplomacy more than any of them realized. Without us playing referee, every old grudge and territorial dispute is coming back to life." But Martinez was wrong. Things were falling apart much faster than even he expected. The first major crisis came when the Andromedan Crystal Collective declared economic war on the Zephyrian Empire. The 2 powers had hated each other for centuries over a boundary dispute that humans had carefully managed through regular negotiations and minor territorial adjustments. With humans gone, Ambassador Krell found his empire facing a trade embargo that threatened to destroy their economy. Dr. Amanda Wright watched the developments from her research station in the Outer Rim. As humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, She understood what was happening better than most. She sat in her small office, reviewing news reports, while her colleague Dr. Kevin Park analyzed trade data. We spent 200 years becoming the galaxy's therapists, Wright explained to Park, as another conflict report scrolled across their screens. Every species trusted us because we had no ancient grudges, no territorial ambitions that conflicted with theirs. We were neutral. Park looked up from his economic models. And now they are remembering why they hated each other in the first place. Look at these trade figures, Amanda. The Galactic Trade Network is starting to fracture. Species are choosing sides based on old alliances instead of economic sense. Wright nodded sadly. She had written dozens of papers on interspecies relations, but watching it all fall apart still hurt. We were like marriage counselors for an entire galaxy. Remove the counselor, and all the old fights come back twice as bad. Captain Sam Turner learned this lesson firsthand when his merchant vessel New York was turned away from Borthon spaceports that had welcomed human traders for decades. Turner had been running cargo between human colonies and alien worlds for 8 years. He knew the dock workers by name and always brought small gifts from Earth. Now, the Borthon Port Authority would not even respond to his communication requests. Turner sent a message to Earth Commercial Authority from his ship as it drifted outside. Borthon space. They are scared, he reported. Scared that trading with us will make them targets in whatever conflict is coming next. The aliens are choosing sides, and they do not want to risk being seen as human allies. But the isolation worked both ways. Human colonies across the Outer Rim activated defense protocols that had been dormant for generations. The Terran Defense Fleet, once focused mainly on exploration and peacekeeping, began rapid military expansion. Admiral Rebecca Stone received her new orders while commanding a patrol squadron near the human colony of New Boston. She was to report immediately to Earth for reassignment as commander of the new Outer Rim Defense Force. Her peaceful exploration mission was ending. Stone stood on the bridge of her ship, looking at the colony below. New Boston housed 2 million humans who had never seen war. They had lived under the protection of galactic law and human diplomacy. Now that protection was gone, and Stone knew what would happen next, the aliens would test humanity's resolve. They would probe human defenses and try to take advantage of what they saw as weakness. They were about to learn that humanity's peaceful nature had always been a choice, not a limitation. 2 weeks after Admiral Morrison walked out of the peace talks, the galaxy was burning. Not literally, but close enough that it made no real difference to the billions of beings caught in the chaos. The Andromedan Crystal Collective had moved beyond economic warfare against the Zephyrian Empire. Their crystal ships now blocked all major trade routes between Zephyrian space and the galactic core. Ambassador Krell found his people facing shortages of basic materials they had imported for centuries. Dr. Amanda Wright watched the crisis unfold. From her research station orbiting Tau Ceti, she had spent 20 years studying how different alien species thought and behaved. Now she was seeing all her theories proven in the worst possible way. Kevin, she called to her colleague Dr. Kevin Park, who was reviewing the latest conflict reports. Look at this pattern. Every major dispute we are seeing now existed 20 years ago. Humans did not solve these problems, we just managed them. Park looked up from his screens, showing trade route closures across 3 sectors. Like putting bandages on infected wounds instead of treating the infection itself. Wright nodded as she pulled up historical diplomatic records. Exactly. The Andromedans and Zephyrians have hated each other since the Crystal Wars 300 years ago. We kept them talking instead of fighting, but we never made them stop hating each other. The economic damage was spreading faster than anyone had predicted. The Galactic Trade Network, which humanity had helped create and maintain for over a century, was falling apart as member species chose sides in the growing conflicts. The unified currency that had made interstellar commerce possible was losing value as trust between species collapsed. Captain Sam Turner experienced this firsthand when his cargo of rare earth metals became worthless overnight. The Vorthan buyers who had contracted for the shipment refused to honor their agreement, claiming that trade with humans was now too dangerous. Turner sat in his ship's small galley, drinking coffee and staring at his financial records. In 2 weeks, he had gone from profitable merchant to nearly bankrupt. His crew of 6 humans looked to him for answers he did not have. "Captain," his first officer Jenny Brooks said as she entered the galley, "we have received another message. From home, the commercial authority is recalling all merchant vessels to human space." Turner looked out the small porthole at the stars. 40 years of building trade relationships, gone in 2 weeks. "They are scared of us now, Jenny. Scared that being seen with humans will make them targets." But fear worked both ways. Human colonies across the outer rim were activating defense systems that most colonists had forgotten existed. The peaceful, farming world of New Haven suddenly revealed that its agricultural domes could retract to expose military-grade shield generators. The mining colony on Asteroid Station 7 opened hidden weapon bays that had been disguised as cargo holds. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood on the bridge of the battleship Constitution as it emerged from hyperspace near the human colony of Proxima Gardens. She had been given command of the newly formed Outer Rim Defense Force with orders to protect human settlements by any means necessary. Stone was 52 years old and had spent her entire career in peaceful exploration missions. She had mapped new star systems, cataloged alien species, and helped establish first contact protocols. Now she was preparing for war. "Admiral," her tactical officer Lieutenant Mike Shun reported, "long-range sensors show Zephyrian scout ships at the edge of the system. They have been observing the colony for 3 days." Stone studied the tactical display. Proxima Gardens housed 800,000 humans who had never seen military action. They grew food and manufactured goods for trade with nearby alien worlds. The idea that they might need defending had seemed impossible just a month ago. "Send a message to the Zephyrian ships," Stone ordered. "Inform them they are in human territory without permission. They have 1 hour to leave, or we will consider their presence a hostile act." John looked surprised. "Admiral, our orders from Earth Command were to avoid confrontation if possible." Stone turned to face her young officer. "Lieutenant, 3 weeks ago, our orders were to maintain peace through diplomacy. That did not work out very well. Now we maintain peace through strength." The Zephyrian scouts left within 30 minutes, but Stone knew they would be back. The aliens were testing human resolve, probing for weakness. They assumed that humanity's peaceful nature meant they would not fight to defend themselves. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the emergency sessions continued around the clock. Ambassador Krell found himself dealing with crises he had never imagined possible. The careful balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable was collapsing as old alliances dissolved, and new ones formed based on fear rather than mutual benefit. The hegemony of 6 suns had declared martial law in their territory after 3 of their member worlds attempted to secede. The Rigel Commonwealth was mobilizing their fleet to protect trade routes from Vorthan raiders. Even the peaceful Centaurian Federation was building new warships for the first time in 50 years. "How did this happen so quickly?" demanded the Nexus mediator during one heated session. 3 weeks ago, we had the most stable period of galactic peace in recorded history." Krell's yellow eyes fixed on the mediator with something approaching desperation. "Because humans were holding it all together. We thought they were weak because they always sought compromise. We did not realize that their willingness to find middle ground was what prevented us from destroying each other. The realization was, spreading throughout the galaxy, but it might have been too late. Dr. Wright received reports that the fighting between Vorthan and Rigel forces had spread to involve 6 different species. What started as a simple trade dispute now threatened to become the largest interstellar war in 3 centuries. "Amanda," Dr. Park called from his monitoring station, "you need to see this. I am picking up military buildups in 12 different sectors. Every major power is mobilizing their fleets." Wright joined him at the displays, showing ship movements across the galaxy. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Without human mediation to resolve disputes peacefully, every species was preparing for war. "They are going to tear the galaxy apart," she whispered. Park nodded grimly. "And the worst part is, they know it. Look at these intercepted communications. Half of them are begging for humans to come back and resume diplomatic relations." Wright pulled up the messages Park had collected. Dozens of species were sending peace overtures to Earth, offering concessions and apologies. But the damage was already done. Trust had been broken, and fear was driving decisions across hundreds of worlds. Captain Jenny Brooks brought the latest intelligence reports to Turner as his ship drifted near the edge of human space. "Sam, it looks like the aliens are finally realizing what they have done, but I am not sure it matters anymore." Turner read through the reports of conflicts spreading across the galaxy. 24 major disputes in 2 weeks. Without human mediators, they cannot stop fighting long enough to make peace. The galaxy was learning a harsh lesson about the difference between keeping peace and making peace. Humans had never forced anyone to stop hating their neighbors. They had simply made it possible to resolve conflicts without violence. Remove that option, and violence became inevitable. As Admiral Stone watched more alien scout ships probe the edges of human territory, she realized that the galaxy was about to discover something else about humanity. They had always chosen to be peacemakers, but that did not mean they had forgotten how to be warriors. The attack on Proxima Centauri came at dawn on a Tuesday morning Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Rebecca Stone was drinking coffee in her ready room aboard the battleship Constitution when the alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Lieutenant Mike Chun burst through her door without waiting for permission. "Admiral, long-range sensors show a combined Zephyrian Andromedan fleet approaching Proxima Centauri. 67 ships including battle cruisers and troop transports." Stone sat down her coffee cup and walked quickly to the bridge. Through the main viewport, she could see the peaceful blue world of Proxima Centauri in the distance. 3 million humans lived on that planet, most of them farmers and researchers who had never seen a warship up close. "Communications," Stone ordered as she took her command chair. "Get me Earth Command immediately, and send a priority alert to all human colonies in this sector." The communication officer worked frantically at her console. "Admiral, I have General Patricia Clark on the emergency channel." General Clark's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Stone could see the tension in her old friend's eyes. "Rebecca, we have been monitoring the situation. The joint alien fleet is claiming they need to establish a protective occupation of Proxima Centauri for galactic security." Stone felt her jaw tighten. "A protective occupation of a human colony. They are testing us, Patricia. They want to see if we will fight to defend our own people." Clark nodded grimly. "The Terran Defense Fleet is already moving. Admiral Morrison is taking personal command of the response force. You are to hold position and defend the colony until reinforcements arrive." The screen went dark, leaving Stone alone with her thoughts for exactly 30 seconds. Then her tactical officer called out readings that changed everything. "Admiral, hyperspace signatures detected. Multiple contacts emerging from jump points throughout the system." Stone watched her displays as ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace. The Constitution was joined by destroyers, cruisers, and ships she had never seen before. Within minutes, a fleet of over 200 human vessels filled the space around Proxima Centauri. Admiral Jack Morrison's face appeared on her communication screen. He was aboard the massive dreadnought Washington, a ship so new that Stone had only seen it in classified reports. Admiral Stone, Morrison's voice carried the same calm authority it had during the failed peace talks. You are now part of Task Force Unity. We are going to show our alien friends what happens when they threaten human civilians. Stone looked at her tactical displays and felt her breath catch. The human fleet was bigger than anything she had imagined possible. Sir, where did all these ships come from? I thought the Terran Defense Fleet only had 40 active vessels. Morrison's smile was cold. Rebecca, for 200 years we have been the galaxy's peacekeepers. Did anyone really think we would do that job without being prepared for the day when peace failed? The combined Zephyrian-Andromedan fleet arrived 3 hours later, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. Ambassador Krell commanded the operation from his flagship, a massive vessel that had terrorized enemies for decades. Beside him, the Andromedan battle coordinator pulsed with confident light patterns. Human vessels, Krell broadcast on all frequencies. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Withdraw from this system immediately and allow us to establish proper security measures. Morrison's response was broadcast throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Krell, you wanted to see what humans are like when we stop being diplomatic. Today, you get your wish. A battle lasted 6 hours and became known throughout the galaxy as the Day of Human Awakening. The alien fleet discovered that humans did not fight like other species. They did not follow predictable tactics or rely on superior firepower. Instead, they adapted and innovated in real time, turning their opponents' strengths into weaknesses. Commander Tony Rodriguez led fighter squadrons from the carrier Chicago in attacks that confused and terrified alien pilots. His small ships moved in patterns no computer could predict, striking weak points that should have been impossible to find. Phoenix Squadron, Rodriguez called to his pilots over the communication channel. Remember what they taught us in training. Human warfare is not about following the rule book. It is about writing new rules while you fight. His fighters swarmed over a Zephyrian cruiser like angry wasps, hitting the ship's weapon systems with precision that seemed almost supernatural. The alien crew found themselves unable to target the fast-moving human ships that struck from impossible angles. Admiral Stone watched from the Constitution's bridge as human tactics evolved throughout the battle. Ships that seemed damaged would suddenly reveal hidden weapons. Formations that appeared to be retreating would turn into devastating attacks. The aliens had prepared to fight humans the way they fought each other, but humans fought like no other species in the galaxy. Captain Lisa Hayes, who had been present at the failed peace talks, now commanded the destroyer Liberty. She used her diplomatic knowledge of alien psychology to predict enemy movements and exploit their cultural blind spots. Target their command ship's communication array, she ordered her weapons officer. Zephyrians panic when they cannot maintain constant contact with their commanders. The strategy worked perfectly. As human weapons disabled communication systems throughout the alien fleet, individual ships began making poor decisions based on fear rather than coordination. But the most shocking moment came when the aliens realized that humans were not trying to destroy them. Despite being attacked, despite having their civilians threatened, the human fleet focused on disabling enemy ships rather than killing their crews. Admiral Morrison broadcast another message as crippled. Alien vessels drifted helplessly in space. Ambassador Krell, your fleet is defeated, but your people are alive. That is the difference between human warfare and the destruction you bring to others. The Zephyrian Andromedan fleet retreated, leaving behind dozens of disabled ships and thousands of prisoners. Every captured alien was treated according to the same humanitarian principles that had made humans trusted mediators for 2 centuries. Dr. Amanda Wright monitored the battle from her research station and immediately understood its significance. "Kevin," she called to her colleague, "they are not just winning this fight. They are sending a message to the entire galaxy." Dr. Kevin Park studied the tactical reports flowing in from the battle zone. "What message is that?" Wright pulled up recordings of human fleet movements during the engagement. That human peaceful. Nature was never weakness. It was choice. They chose to be diplomats and peacekeepers because they believed in peace, not because they were incapable of war. The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy faster than hyperspace travel. Species that had dismissed humans as weak now faced the reality that Earth had been holding back military capabilities that dwarfed their own. General Frank Hamilton commanded ground forces on the contested world of Haven 7, where 3 alien factions had been fighting over mining rights for months. When news of the Proxima Centauri battle arrived, all 3 sides immediately requested human mediation. "Fascinating," Hamilton told his staff as he reviewed the ceasefire requests. "Yesterday they wanted us gone. Today they are begging for our help." His aide, Colonel Sarah Martinez, looked at the intelligence reports. "Sir, it appears that seeing our fleet in action has reminded them why they preferred us as peacekeepers rather than enemies." Hamilton nodded as he prepared to meet with the alien representatives. "We are still diplomats, Sarah. We just practice diplomacy with bigger guns now." The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their numbers. It was their ability to choose peace while possessing the power to enforce it. The aliens had forgotten that every successful diplomat needs the option of walking away from the table. More importantly, they had forgotten that sometimes walking away means coming back with a fleet. 6 months after Admiral Morrison walked out of the peace talks, Ambassador Krell stood in the same chamber on Nexus Prime where it all began. This time, he was alone except for 2 nervous aides, while Morrison sat surrounded by representatives from 47 species who had allied themselves with humanity. The Great Hall looked the same, but everything else had changed. The confident alien delegates who had dismissed human concerns were gone, replaced by frightened representatives begging for protection from the chaos their leaders had created. Krell's yellow eyes showed none of their previous arrogance as he approached the negotiation table. His translation device crackled to life with words that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. "Admiral Morrison," Krell began, his voice carrying desperation instead of demands, "the Zephyrian Empire wishes to formally apologize for our profound misunderstanding of human intentions and capabilities." Morrison leaned back in his chair, studying the alien who had called humans weak and threatened their colonies. Captain Lisa Hayes sat beside him, her datapad recording every word. "For the historical record." "Apologies are appreciated, Ambassador," Morrison replied calmly, "but actions speak louder than words." What exactly is the Zephyrian Empire prepared to do to demonstrate this newfound respect for humanity? Krell's snake-like body coiled nervously around his chair. "We offer full reparations for the attack on Proxima Centauri. We will withdraw all territorial claims against human colonies. We pledge to honor all existing trade agreements and request immediate resumption of human diplomatic mediation in our ongoing conflicts." Around the hall, representatives from dozens of species nodded eagerly. The Andromedans chimed their agreement in crystal tones. The Vorthan delegate rustled with enthusiasm. Even the proud hegemony of 6 suns had sent representatives to grovel for human protection. Dr. Amanda Wright observed the proceedings from the gallery, taking notes on the complete reversal of galactic power dynamics. 6 months ago, these same beings had treated humans like children who needed supervision. Now they competed with each other to offer the most generous terms for human favor. Morrison stood and walked to the large window overlooking Nexus Prime's capital city. Below, ships from across the galaxy waited in orderly lines for permission to dock. Human patrol vessels maintained perfect order in what had once been a chaotic mess of competing traffic patterns. "The old order is dead," Morrison said without turning around. "You killed it when you chose threats over negotiation, when you mistook our peaceful nature for weakness. What emerges from its ashes will be fundamentally different." Captain Karen Williams, who had been promoted to director of the new Human Diplomatic Corps, stood to address the assembly. At 35, she had spent her entire career learning alien cultures and languages. Now she would help reshape how those cultures interacted. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Williams began, "humanity did not seek this position of authority. We preferred our role as neutral mediators. But since you forced us to choose between submission and leadership, we choose leadership." She activated a holographic display showing the new galactic compact that would replace the old system of chaotic alliances and constant conflicts. Under this agreement, peaceful species receive protection and support. Aggressive species face immediate consequences. Trade flows freely under human oversight. Disputes are resolved quickly through mandatory arbitration. The Rigel Commonwealth representative, a large insect being, clicked nervously. "And if we refuse to sign this compact?" Morrison turned from the window, his face showing no emotion. "Then you remain outside the protected zone. You handle your own conflicts, defend your own trade routes, and solve your own problems. But you do so without threatening those who choose peace." The message was clear. Join the new system or face isolation in a galaxy where human fleets now enforce stability. Most species had already seen what happened to those who chose aggression over cooperation. General Frank Hamilton commanded the peacekeeping force on Haven 7, where the three-way conflict had been resolved within days of human intervention. He stood in what had been a battlefield, now converted to a thriving trade center where former enemies worked side by side. "It is remarkable," he told his aide Colonel Sarah Martinez as they watched alien workers unloading cargo ships. 6 months ago, these three factions were killing each other over mining rights. Now they are partners in a joint venture that benefits everyone. Martinez nodded as she reviewed production reports. The threat of human military intervention certainly helped motivate their cooperation. But I think they genuinely prefer this arrangement to constant warfare. Hamilton smiled as he watched a group of alien children playing together near the loading docks. They are learning what we tried to tell them for 2 centuries. Peace is more profitable than war, but peace requires someone willing to enforce it. Dr. Wright published her analysis of the transformation in the Galactic Journal of Interspecies Relations. Her conclusion was simple but profound. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our military might. It was our ability to choose peace while possessing the power to enforce it. She wrote from her new office on Terra Station, humanity's first diplomatic fortress. The massive structure orbited Earth and served as headquarters for human operations across the galaxy. From her window, she could see ships arriving daily with requests for mediation, trade agreements, and protection. Captain Sam Turner found himself busier than ever as galactic commerce resumed under human oversight. His merchant vessel New York was booked solid for the next 2 years, carrying goods between worlds that had been isolated by conflict. "It is ironic," he told his first officer Jenny Brooks as they prepared for another cargo run. 6 months ago, they were afraid to trade with us. Now they will not trade with anyone else. Brooks laughed as she reviewed their manifest. Fear and respect look very similar from the outside. The difference is that respect lasts longer. The transformation was most visible on worlds that had suffered under the old system of constant conflict. The mining colony of Kepler Station had been raided 17 times in the previous year by competing factions. Under human protection, it had not been attacked once in 6 months. Admiral Rebecca Stone commanded the Outer Rim Defense Force from her flagship, now renamed the Peacekeeper. Her fleet had grown to include ships from allied species who requested the honor of serving under human command. Admiral, her tactical officer Lieutenant Mike Chun reported, "We have received another request for protection. The Tau Ceti colonies want to join the compact." Stone smiled as she reviewed the application. Approved. Send a patrol squadron to establish a permanent presence in their system. The new galactic order was not built on conquest or domination. It was built on the simple principle that peaceful species deserve protection from aggressive ones. Humans had become the galaxy's guardians by choice, not by force. Ambassador Krell signed the Galactic Compact with shaking hands, knowing his empire's survival depended on human goodwill. As he pressed his seal to the document, he understood that the galaxy had learned a lesson that would not be forgotten. Admiral Morrison kept a simple motto on his desk in his new office as Galactic Coordinator: peace through strength, strength through unity. Below, it was a smaller inscription that captured the lesson learned by every species in the galaxy: never mistake kindness for weakness. The humans had walked away from peace talks, and in doing so, they had taught the galaxy what peace actually meant.